Awesome, man. Well, the time has flown by already, so we're going to pivot over to the three things game.
Yeah, let's do it.
So what month is your birthday in?
August.
John?
Yep.
Oh, same.
Yes.
Let's go.
Oh, okay. What day?
August 12th.
You're lying.
Is it your birthday too?
Yes.
Let's go! Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, unplanned, y'all.
Yeah.
Unplanned. That's wild.
Welcome to the Nouveau Podcast, the podcast that models healthy communication for men, empowering them to start the journey of self-work. Now here's your host, Dumas Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show this week. As always, I'm sending a heartfelt thank you to tuning in and spending an hour with me and my guest. A few housekeeping items here before we start. We are definitely still in the growth phase of the podcast, so if you have not sent it out to anyone who you think would enjoy it, please do so. Send it on out. And also, regarding the form, the Google form I have filled out about future topics, there are a lot of you who listen every week who haven't filled it out. I see you lurking. Come on now. Show me some love. Get in there. Tell me what you want to hear about, and I'll make it happen for you. It'll make your listening experience more enjoyable and will help me out too by giving you the content that you want to hear. So thank you very much for doing that. Now, to this week's episode. My guest today is Jonathan Dumas. Jonathan is the founder and owner of CommonCulture Coaching and Consulting. He's passionate about leadership and equitable workplaces. He has a master's degree in organizational psychology and specializes in organizational and team development. He has coached and consulted across industries. He has a track record of creating sustainable and thriving cultures that encourage diversity, equity, inclusivity, and justice. He's also the host of his own podcast called Real Talk with Dumas, where he has meaningful and substantive conversations on society and culture. Jonathan is the man. I really enjoyed our conversation. So at this point, I'm going to stop talking and let you enjoy this week's episode of the Nouveau Podcast. And we're live. What's up, Jonathan?
Hey, man. What's going on with you?
Dude, chilling, killing. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You remember
about to call the police, G.
Oh, my God. Dude, well, thank you so much for taking the time, and I can give you a bit of an introduction from what I understand. So you are a dude living down in SoCal.
Yeah.
Are you from California originally?
Yes, I am. I'm originally from California. I know a lot of people move here, especially in Southern California, and move here. And then, but yeah, born and raised in San Diego, California, Chula Vista, more specifically. It's like 8 minutes away from the border. Spent a lot of my life down that way, and then my family moved up to this small desert town called in the Inland Empire. It's called Barstow, California. It's literally like your last stop before, if you're driving going to Las Vegas. It's literally the last stop. But that was just kind of like by accident. We landed there, and then I left as soon as I possibly could because it was. I went from a place that was like literally 2 million people in San Diego to like less than 25,000, and I'm like, I can't. I'm good. I'm so good. So I left and moved out of there as soon as I could, as soon as I graduated high school, actually. For sure. Yeah. Could you see yourself going back to a small community like that ever again in your life? That's a great question. I thought I could. I have thought about that actually. Like me and my partner, like debate the idea of having kids, potentially not. Because there are a lot of cool benefits of like being in a smaller town. It's slower. Everybody knows each other. It really does give like a community vibe and a community of care. But I just really like being not necessarily in the city, but like the outskirts of the city, just having access to a whole lot more. So I guess I just talked myself out of it. So no, I couldn't. Yeah. I feel like, I don't know, a lot of people say that about cities, right? They say, oh, it's a great place to visit, but I can never live there. I kind of feel like that about rural places or just smaller towns. Great to visit, kind of unwind. Mm-hmm. But the only other thing is that I have this dream of growing my own food and fruits and vegetables and leafy greens and all that. Yeah. So I think there are ways to do that in an urban setting, but that's the one thing that would
really moved me, because that's just such a lifestyle change of having healthy, nutritious food. I mean, being connected to it,
Yep. That you grow too, for sure. I love to like garden and plant and stuff like that. So like one of the big things that I want is like, if we are able to buy a home, it's just like a dream, out here in California. But if we're able to buy a home, I would love to like have a garden and do that. Just like that is like a must. Like that is a for sure. 100%. I think about like, even, I don't know. It is a lifestyle change, even going to like a rural place. I'm trying to think of, because my partner, she grew up in like a smaller town. It's not super small, but it's less than like 50,000, I think, less than 60. But it's not San Diego. Like it's not anything like that. It's just outside of Twin Cities, one of those suburbs out there. So, but I absolutely love being in like LA. Like I really do love it.
That's great, man. It's on my list. So we connected via like a podcaster, super exclusive. No,
yeah. This is the podcast dating app or whatever. Yeah.
But you have a show and it's kick ass, man. I listened to a few episodes.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
For sure. I like your approach because you have conversations with your almost immediate circle or people that you know really well.
Mm.
So what did you, or I guess when you were deciding to go that approach, why did you decide to go with kind of intimate people as opposed to connecting via the internet or with random people day to day?
Yeah. So I'm gonna try my best because I can be long-winded. So I'm gonna try my best to like be concise. So I think it really started with my brothers. And so all three of us, actually all of us have different dads. My mom had me at a young age. Actually all of us at a pretty young age. By the time she was 24, she already had 3 kids. So,
yeah.
But all of us experienced like a lot of life together, but at the same time, we all experienced life very, very differently and had different stages of like where my mom was. Like my mom had me when she was 15, my other brother 18, and then my other youngest brother 24. And so like all these different like life experiences that are just happening differently from this same person. So we're experiencing my mom as she's like getting older, getting wiser, getting more established, learning more about herself, learning more about even raising kids, raising 3 Black sons. And so the idea was really just birthed out of that. I just really was so curious about the idea of like, how can we all have been raised by the same person under the same roof and just all come out very, very differently. And then it kind of like blossomed into like me wanting to learn more about the people that were in my life and then kind of like branch out more. I feel like people like, oh, I want to talk to this person, just learn more about them. I wanted to start with the people that I thought I knew the most and just ask them really intentional questions and get to know them a whole lot more, which kind of like speaks to like how I even go about doing like my daily work, job, all that stuff, because I feel like how we interact with the world is like almost representative of how we interact with the people that are like in our immediate circle. And these are the foundational pieces on how we, learn to interact and care for people and love for people and be honest and talk or whatever. So I just want to get back to my roots, and it has been a fun journey. I've learned so much. And it's kind of grown and blossomed. I now speak to people outside of just like my immediate circle. But it was really fun it's been really fun to put that pod together for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So by the time you were 20, your mom was 35.
Yes.
Which is almost, you could be, I'm sure I don't know. You tell me, is it a friend relationship at that point? Is it still like she's squarely your mother, or is it co-parenting, almost like, cause you're the oldest too. So I imagine you had to be, an adult or like be a caretaker at certain moments. What was that like?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'm honestly really curious about how my mom would answer this. To be honest, cause like we were attached to the hip, honestly, wherever she went, obviously I went. And so I think a good portion of my life, because my mom was so young, like there wasn't this dynamic of like this hierarchy, right? Where like I am the parent, I know absolutely everything and like really domineering, over my life or whatever. And so all I know my mom to to be is like really honest and open, really caring and loving, and really didn't want to like control what I decided to do. Like she was honest about what she wanted me to do, but she really didn't want to control what I want, what I did and everything like that. So I had it was funny because I was like sheltered a lot, but I also had a lot of freedom in our relationship to ask questions, to really like argue and debate, not in a disrespectful sense. And sometimes, yeah, because, you know, all that.
Right.
But I think it would like, I just had conversations with my mom all of the time. And so I think there was a part of our relationship, it was hella rocky. It was just really, really destructive. But right now I would say my mom's one of my best friends. And I really do mean that. Like my mom was really one of my best friends. We talk, not every day, cause she has her own life and I have my own life, but like literally we have our midweek talks and then we talk on the weekend, and just catch up. And, we laugh a whole lot. And I try and like, from a business perspective, like try and give my 2 cents, cause that's what I always do. But yeah, it's just really funny. I'm really curious about how my mom would answer that question. Cause when I think back to it, and I've had therapy to help me out with this, I've talked to like my therapist about how I actually interacted with my siblings. And a lot of it was like almost like a parent, like that role was parent. But I would have never said growing up that I'm like second parent, but it's funny. I'm trying to like unlearn that kind of like mentality and like move back into like a brother relationship, because like my youngest brother already has a dad. He don't need me. And like he already has a mom. He doesn't need that. So he has he has 2 parents. Like he needs a sibling at this point.
Right.
And similar with my other brother, although his relationship with his dad is like rocky. He just needs a brother. He doesn't need somebody just bossing him, telling him what to do. He just really needs somebody to be like, hey, I've been through this, and like, this is how I would approach it. Take it how you want it. Blah, 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 whatever you want. But yeah, I want to know what my mom would say to that. I might have to ask her that next time I talk to her.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good question.
Yeah, man, that's cool. I have been, in reading and thinking about this stuff. Often I've learned that when there is a dicey relationship between parents, the child is the one who has to kind of step up and be the partner to the mom, for example. Say it's a boy child and then a mom who's in a marriage that isn't great. Subconsciously it'll happen that the kid steps up and gives the mom some type of support or stability or whatever it is that she's not getting in the marriage, which is kind of interesting. Like all that is, I would say, falls in the realm of like things that aren't discussed or acknowledged in the family dynamic unless you go to therapy or unless you think about it really intentionally.
Yep.
Yeah. And I listened to the pod with your youngest brother, and I thought that was really interesting because you were describing how he's wise beyond his years, and there's a true like equal playing field kind of vibe is what I got. And I have that with my siblings too. I would say I'm the youngest, but we all have our strengths and our moments where we lead in the family and kind of help each other out. And then I've been kind of re-navigating my relationship with my parents as my parents split up when I was 21-ish.
Okay.
It's kind of an interesting age because it's like old enough to have, autonomy, obviously, out of the house and doing all that. But then also it's like there's that moment after the split up where the parent becomes the child becomes the parent almost and gets the parent through that rough moment. And then it's like, what does that relationship look like after that? Because it's kind of been changed fundamentally. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. You try and just not even navigating that. It's like a boundaries reset. I just remember when my stepdad, and my mom split up. Yeah. It was just kind of, it happened. Yeah. When I was younger, and just like, it was really tough. Yeah. I can't imagine going through that like in an older age. I would imagine that you're a little bit older, a little bit wiser. But I experienced it around like 11 or 12. And it was just really tough to kind of like see my mom navigate that, and like me. Yeah. Like you mentioned with that study that you saw, kind of like try and fill that gap and fill that role and try to be that support system that my mom needs. But it's funny because like even like later on in high school, that after I did that role for so long, and I don't know if you're even experiencing this now, but doing that, like she tried to like reset it in like a weird way. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like it was just like when she started dating again and trying to put herself out there, and me always having something to say about the guys she was dating. And to my credit, I wasn't wrong about him, but she didn't want me to tell her. She didn't want me to tell her that I was right about them. And maybe the way I went about it wasn't the healthiest way. Well, I know for a fact it wasn't the healthiest way. But yeah, it's just resetting those boundaries is always hard too. Yeah, it's taken some therapy to get to this point to like kind of reset even my boundaries with my mom, and even being in a relationship now, resetting them again. Just like it's almost like you're always constantly like resetting those boundaries and trying to understand and like where do they fit, because they'll always fit if you have like somewhat healthy family dynamics. But how is this going to rest? I guess now, like I don't know. It's been really interesting. How have you been navigating that over the last few years with your parents?
Yeah. Well, first I have a joke to make. Like you go up behind your mom, you whisper, you're like, he sucks.
It was more like yelling too. It's just like, this dude freaking sucks, mom. Like, what the hell? Yeah.
Get out of here.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been good. It's been interesting. My mom actually remarried very recently. Earlier this month. Yeah. And it's great. I mean, it's happy days. Her new husband's awesome. I've known him. They were like in our neighborhood in the Philly. And so I knew of him and friends with his kids and stuff. So it's good.
Okay.
I think that deserves more attention, honestly, if I were to think about it more critically, because we were there, all of our family were there for each other really through the tough times, right? And I don't know, that is a relationship that deserves more attention, I guess, is my takeaway about, just, I guess, better, more thorough check-ins. Just living coast to coast is tough.
Yeah.
But as you said, I mean, you talk weekly, bi-weekly, so
there's
no reason not to.
Yeah, I mean, I try to, even if it's just like quick check-ins. I think a lot of times my mom's calling me to complain about her job, to be honest. And so just hearing some of the jokes and whatnot. Yeah, but I would say that my partner is just like, she talks to her mom or her parents like pretty consistently, like really consistently. I think at the beginning of our relationship or even our marriage, it was probably like, I would say sometimes it was like 3 to 4 times a week. And I'm like, oh my God, dog. Anytime her mom was going on a walk, she'll call Linz, Yeah. And so I think I like gleaned off of that a little bit more of like, it's really not that hard. Like, who's to say that we have to like schedule a check-in? You know what I'm saying? Like I was thinking about this question the other week. It's like, who is on that list of people that you could just call and they would pick up? Like, you don't have to schedule it. Like, who is that people? Who are those folks that you can just call? And my list wasn't really that long, like including my mom, obviously, but it really was not that long of people that, like, one, if they were to call me, I would pick up. But 2, if I were to call them that I know for a fact or like high guarantee that they would either pick up or they would call me back when they had a chance. It's just kind of like that change and shift now. Like, it's just like, oh, we don't randomly call people anymore. It's just, I know. It's just wild. My mom still randomly calls me. So
yeah, I'm a total random caller.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think it's real. It's like, tell me what's going on in your brain right now. How's the world feeling and looking to you?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing. And those relationships are really valuable to people that you can do that with.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do have the friends that I just know they're literally like, don't call me unless you're in jail or dying.
Yeah. Like, we're cool, but don't call. Yeah, it needs to be an emergency to call me. You need to text me or something. Yeah.
And there's some of my best friends like have my back for always, but I just know that about them. I think that's funny, but that's a lost art, man. I think generationally and just people don't know how to talk.
Yeah. It's
you
real.
know? and you probably see that in your work, right? As a facilitator of D&I competency in organizations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because it's hard for people to talk, as we've acknowledged. There's a reason why podcasts are popular.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about conversation that is calming and enriching somehow. But yeah, how does that show up for you in your work as far as people's ability or inability to converse?
Oh gosh. Oh goodness. It is like, I think so I'm not one of the people that have just been like, oh, 2020 happened and I decided to do DEI work. Like, that's not actually it. Like, I've been in this, like, and so is my partner. She's been doing this for several years too. And so, like, we were already like sharing and leading stuff and teaching people like the necessity of like this work. And so, like, it is, from what I've seen from folks, they are so willing, and I'll just be really explicit, from like white people, white men in particular, like so ready to do it until it costs them something, because like that's what it is. And it's like, it's so hard. It's so hard to communicate with folks the need for it, right? I'll answer your question this way. Organizations are really good about like marketing. And they market what they believe is going to make them money. And so right now, social justice is hot. It's going to make you money. And if you promote, or like even climate change is hot, so they're gonna promote it and make you money and phrase things well and pay people a lot of money to phrase it well and do things. There's very few companies that I've seen that are actually doing the necessary changes or the necessary work that actually cause the systemic or societal changes that are necessary, right? Like hiring a diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice person is cool, but like, what is that position there for? I should not have to have this job. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I shouldn't have to formulate my company around diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice work and organizational development work for companies. Like, I really shouldn't have to do it. Like, my job should not exist.
In concept, it shouldn't exist. Yeah.
And so like, if racism doesn't exist, my job doesn't exist. If sexism doesn't exist, if genderism and homophobia and all these different things, if those things don't exist, then we're in a good place. So I think, as far as like, to get to the heart of your question, like, people aren't good about having these conversations. A lot of times white people have never had conversations around race, or it was like literally like told to them not to, because like to talk about race is rude. But like, you have a bunch of people of color, persons of color that are talking about race pretty consistently all the time, because like we just do it. And so like, you get that jumbled together, and it's just like a bunch of convoluted mess. And I think what I've witnessed the most is like there is just a lot of miscommunication happening when it comes to that. But there's also a lot of Black and brown people that are so exhausted and tired of talking about these things, because like, oh, wow, like, you're just now seeing it, but I'm telling you what I need to do to fix it, but you don't want to do that. So you don't want to fix it. So then like, all right, okay. Right. So like, it's a long, complicated answer, but like, people not listen. Yeah. So it's like, you have to be willing to do the necessary work outside of just words, right? It's beyond words. It's really like putting, your reputation on the line. It's really putting your money where your mouth is. It's really like giving up like positions of power and authority. Like, cause if you want organizational change, you step aside and listen to the marginalized communities that are impacted by the hurt and harm that are in place, or also like just systems that have been implicitly in place that are actually doing more harm than good. Yeah. All that to say is, conversations are hard, especially with businesses and money, when money's involved. Like, people don't want to give up power and authority. They don't want to do it.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And I've seen that behavior in myself, as far as it's not my place to talk here. So much so to the point, dude, where like, I am involved with and started a alumni for allyship group in my high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. We're kind of making impactful programming. And one of the sessions where I was involved as like a speaker panel, it was a panel of alumni from the school and parents, mostly people of color, alumni and parents of color, and a few white guys because it was all boys school.
Okay.
To also, be in the conversation. And this like ingrained behavior was so deep that even in that moment, I started off by saying, I just want to acknowledge that this isn't, necessarily my space to talk. And the moderator, Anthony, who's been on this podcast, was like, Tom, I literally brought you here to talk. What are you talking? Like, what are you doing right now? And I was like, oh shit, you're right.
Yeah.
So that was a very humbling moment.
Yeah.
It's like, even I put in the effort to put myself in that position to participate. And I still fell back on the conditioned behavior, which is really bad.
Yeah.
That's not what we're looking for.
That's so funny because, and then like, I think of all the dynamics, right? And this could not be what happened, but I think about like, oftentimes when I have seen this work out or play out in organizations, like I was, at my old job, I was part of like this DEI initiative last year. And so, what happened is that like, we would get these breakout rooms and we made it so that these breakout rooms could just like, facilitate like deeper conversation amongst like smaller groups. Right. And what would happen is that like I was in groups that were like predominantly persons of color and we're all sharing, we're chopping it up, going into it. And you got that one or two lonely white folks and they're just quiet. And they're like, my place is to listen and not say anything, which is like, yes, there is a place and a time for that. But like, but there's also like there's the other groups that I was in where like white people are all in there and they're also hesitant to talk because I'm present. They don't like, there's not like a brave space created. Right. And so like, there has to be a balance between like, not just safe places, but like brave spaces to speak and share what's going on. And typically you can set some rules and boundaries for that. But like, it's hard. It is really hard. There's like dynamics popping off all over the place because white people don't want to make mistakes and piss off the person of color or come off racist because being a racist is the worst thing for a white person, which is like racism is it is not like a character, like an absolute, like ingrained character piece. Like you can unlearn racism. So it is really wild. It's so, sometimes racism is just funny. It's just like, I just laugh at it because you're just like, that's the only thing you can do sometimes. Cause you're like, God damn, like really? Like, come on now. But anyways, no, I feel that I've witnessed that a bunch of times, but, my thing is like a place really ain't inclusive if not everybody's at the table. Right. So.
For sure. And that is one of the kind of core messages I want to drive home too for my audience listening is that be brave, have those conversations in your family if you're white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bring it up. They're not going to disown you. They have to love you.
Yeah.
Like
they might not like you, but they'll love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even had a friend recently talk about it, and he was saying how he was with a group of like cousins from whatever, and they were, talking about how the resistance to, the like the movement and saying some problematic stuff. Mm-hmm. And he was like, but I know I'm not going to change their mind. I know, they're not, is this going to cause more problems? And I was like, yeah, probably, but also like you're obligated to say something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like, if you believe in this stuff and you say you believe in it, that's where it comes up. And that's where you gotta, like you said, put your actions behind the words. And he's not even someone who is particularly like invested in this, but I was just like, dude, like you have access to that space that no black person does. So
yeah,
get in there, buddy.
Yeah. And if I did, they wouldn't listen to me anyways. So, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I think, one of the things that I always say is like, somebody asked me a few weeks ago and they said, what is the advice that you give, people that are trying to engage in this conversation? And this is not just like white people, too. It's like, there's other folks that like really are trying to learn how to navigate these conversations in work, in their interpersonal relationships, outside of work, even outside of race, the conversation of race. And it's just like, yo, do it, make a mistake, do it again. So like make a mistake, be accountable to yourself, be accountable to the person that if you cause harm, if you do any of that stuff, and then also like do it again. Like the only way you're going to learn how to do this, talk about this, you don't need to be a professional. Because like you'll never know the ins and outs of absolutely every single justice topic that is hot and popping right now. There's absolutely no way. As much as social media tries, all the social media warriors out there, shout out to you. But the fact of the matter is like how do we know we're not going to change hearts and minds? You know what I'm saying? How do we know that we're not going to have a conversation that like makes people think? At the very least, makes people think, and like they don't say those things out loud, or at least in the vicinity of you anymore. Because you know for a fact that they won't be saying those things anymore, especially if it's straight out of pocket, you know? Let's try calling folks in like, yo, like, what is that? Why do you say that? Like, why do you think that about them? Did you know that white people also loot and tear stuff down? They just call it tailgating, you know what I'm saying? or stuff like that. Like, you know, like it's like, let's rethink and reshape all these things. Cause like you can't just put plaster on like Black Lives Matter and say like, oh, there was looting and rioting. 97% was peaceful protests. G. What are you talking about? So you're going to disown an entire movement based off of 3%. How much are you doing your research? Come on, let's talk about that. Let's keep it all the way funky. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's kind of like stuff like that. Like that's how I approach the conversation. I don't try and be aggressive. I don't try to be mean. I just want you to think about what you're saying. If you're going to say that, stand by what you say, but I just want you to have all the facts. If you're going to be wrong, I just want to show you
for sure.
Yeah, show you what you're necessarily wrong about. And then if you're going to stand by that, stand by that. But I try not to be, a dick about it. But that's what I would encourage people also. Sometimes you do need to call people out and just be like, what you call it? Just like, just that needs to be firm. Yeah. Just needs to be firm. But more times than not, it doesn't really call for that. It really calls for just like, let's get this back on track.
Yeah. I like that concept of call people in to the fold as opposed to calling them out. And I think there are two things that came up there that are really relevant, reflecting our society. Mm-hmm. So one would be the call out culture. Mm-hmm. And where's the line between productive calling out and unproductive, so people dig in their heels and just are more in their echo chamber. And then two would be this, the simplistic evaluation and kind of the narrative of what Black Lives Matter is. Mm-hmm. It kind of reflects the whole, just our whole instant gratification culture, our social media culture of show me something that I can process and understand and make a judgment on in half a second.
Yep.
Because that's how our brains are being trained by social media.
Yep.
These conversations they have given back and forth. Like when we first connected, I was curious to hear your perspective on the whole like individual accountability perspective, because that's something that a lot of, I would say, people who oppose the school of the systemic nature of the problems point to, individual accountability as an avenue, as a better kind of talking point as far as improving outcomes than the systemic nature. So that, like room for those kinds of conversations needs to be created.
Yeah.
Because these topics are complex and deserve more than just a headline, kind of judgment call.
Absolutely. I get frustrated because I've thought about this more and more, because it's so frustrating that like, and especially as like a researcher, like I did my undergrad in history, political science, minor in pre-law, minor in like philosophy. And then I also did my master's degree in like organizational psychology. So like literally research, having facts, having evidence to back and support what you're sharing and what you're saying. And then also examining history. And so like and I get caught, and even still I get caught up in it. Like I see a headline, I get pissed off, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know the story or the history or the thing behind that, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's frustrating about like the social media culture that we're in right now. It's like there's such quick snap judgments that like I don't even get into like Instagram debates. Like I don't get into Facebook debates. There was one time I had to go off on somebody. It was MLK. It was King Day. I was not having it. He tried to insert himself into a conversation he had no business being. But so I had to school him.
Read the room.
I know, bro. Just not on King Day. Not on King Day. So like I've always told people, if you ever want to have a conversation with me, if you disagree with anything I say on Instagram or I post, because I'll post stuff, just to get people to think, or even an episode that I post about like, and I talk about racism, systemic racism, educational racism, redlining, all these different things. If you ever want to have a conversation with me, like, let's have a conversation. I had a conversation with somebody who disagreed with me about the equal pay that the U.S. women's national team is fighting for. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had a conversation offline with somebody. He was wrong, but I had a conversation with them, and it was like a dialogue. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like debating folks or arguing with folks, because all we're trying to do is like prove each other wrong. And I want to walk away with something right. That's why I'm incredibly frustrated with our current political landscape right now. It's like you got Democrats who are like too scared to do anything because they're scared of what's going to happen in next year's election and what's going to happen in 2024. And then you also have Republicans who are literally digging in their heels. They're saying like, look what they're doing. They're not doing anything. And then also like leaning into, I'm not even going to say Trumpism, because like Trumpism has like grown bigger than Trump. Like, it's literally grown bigger than Trump. Like, there's people that are coming out of the woodworks that are a lot worse than who he is and who he was. So it's like you have these two budding ideas, and it's just like nothing's getting done. Nothing's happening. Meanwhile, the masses, working class, middle class, are like struggling. So going back to your original question, sorry, I get on soapbox real quick. What I would say is like, if we're going to have conversations like that, if we're going to debate between like systemic racism and then this individual like accountability, right? Like, can we have like substantive and meaningful conversations on a solution? You know what I'm saying? Like, I will conversate with you all day if we're working towards something better, if we're creating actual change that's going to work, and what compromise looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want I'll say this. I wouldn't want an all Democratic, like from the top down, from state, federal, to local government, and nor would I want an all Republican top down to the very bottom government either. Because like, if you have one system that is working, like, there's a lot of people that are losing. We have to work into a place of where how they used to do it was like levels of compromise and working together to coming to a better solution that like comes from different perspectives. But the thing is, I won't tolerate racism. I'm not going to tolerate sexism. I'm not going to tolerate homophobia. I'm not going to tolerate any of those other isms. Right. But as long as we're working towards an actual solution, I don't want to debate semantics. I'm not going to debate, what way do I believe systemic racism exists, and what about individual accountability? I mean, we could, but like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? Totally. And I get why people want to offer a different perspective. But a lot of times what I've seen, people that offer like that different perspective, cherry pick different examples in society that they see or in history that they see. Or they do that for clickbaits, and vice versa. People do it for systemic racism all the time. I see people who have literally made a living off of like talking about systemic racism and not really doing any actual work for societal change. So like, yeah, I get frustrated all the way around, because like one of my top strengths is like execution, maximizer. Like, let's get something done, because like I've literally lived through enough, and also witnessed enough people that go through shit all the time. Like, they're still suffering while we're having these arguments about pointless, meaningless stuff. So
for sure, I like that a lot.
Yeah,
because it's like, is the person who is starting the conversation, is it because you really think, that making that distinction is going to lead to a better solution? Or is it because you want a scapegoat and you're more comfortable blaming people for their situation than, I like that.
Yeah. And it literally could be, the thing is, it literally probably could be both. Like, systemic racism exists, and then also people make stupid ass decisions. but history will tell us that systemic racism actually is real, because, this system, like legislation, all that stuff was built by, old white people with money. I'm not going to just say, I'm not even going to say white people in general. It's old white people with money, land, power, authority, that built this system. And then like, we are left to like kind of navigate it. But the people that were marginalized are the people that don't have money, that don't have power, that don't have authority, and people that have darker skin. So like, that's the reality of our system. And so like, how are we going to undo all of that? And then also in the midst of that, people do dumb shit all the time, break the law, rob people, steal from folks. But like, that's not designated by a color. All color people do that. So all people of different races do that. I'm gonna clean that up.
There's stupid people everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Yeah, man. I was in a Wikipedia hole the other day, and I was reading about Trump, and I was like, oh, succeeded in office by Biden. And I was like, dang, these old ass white guys. I'm like, these guys don't represent our country.
They do not.
It's like, I don't know. Obviously this is more a thought exercise, but it's kind of like that, the old institution, like gripping on to the power, it's like, we won't give it up.
Yeah.
Even the makeup of the Senate, the House and the Congress, the Congress with the House of Representatives and the Senate. I mean, I don't know what the current data is, but I would be shocked if it was anything more than 30% people of color and women.
Yeah, it's
probably still 70 odd % white dudes, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. We can look it up really quickly.
It's really wild. And when it's just like, if you see a picture of it, it's one of the most wild things. Like, even looking at the Senate and the House, it's just wild to look at. Like, is this truly representative of the U.S.? It's unbelievable. And then, yeah, you're absolutely right. You got like these, and I'm not, the thing is, I want to make very clear, I'm not saying that, old people, just as soon as you hit a certain age, like, you're done. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is, like, there is this, like, belief that, like, the way that they did things worked, and the way that they did things will still work now. And that's just not the case. We tried it. Hasn't worked. I mean, it hasn't worked. The climate is outrageous. Whether you think that the science is made up, whatever, it's getting hotter. Shit is getting weird. Middle class has been stuck, and the money has been stagnant in that area for years. The tax system is whack. I don't understand taxes. It's the tax law, like, books are like high. You know what I'm saying? It's just wild. So, like, what you're doing is not working, obviously. So, like,
yeah,
pass the baton. It's just pass the baton.
Yeah, there are so many examples of that. Like, looking deeper and thinking deeper into the way things are makes no sense. I mean, even corruption at a city level, for example.
Mm-hmm. Like,
I'm in Philadelphia right now. There's like a lot of known corruption in local government in Philadelphia, and it's just kind of been accepted. It's like Chicago, for example. All these cities, there's a massive paper trail, but that's not really talked about.
Yeah.
We talk about countries like Russia as being corrupt, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's crazy to think about. And so here's a good one, a question. I think it'll be a good question. So sometimes it can be daunting. Sometimes I get overwhelmed thinking about, there's so many issues. There's so much good to be done. So for you, how do you conceptualize of a solution, and how do you make it less abstract and overwhelming and more tangible as an executor, as you said?
Yeah. I like, the last few weeks actually were really hard for me. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I talked to my therapist about just, like, I've had multiple really rough days, really difficult to get out of bed, just like depressing. Depression and anxiety is just so real, and like, they're just like wet blankets and make it impossible. Like, honestly. Yeah. So like, mental illness, that, no worries. Like, mental illness is like, people got to take it serious. People got to take it serious. Even people that are going through it, take your mental health very seriously. And so I think for me, I have to put in perspective. One of my old managers, she said, like, like, she did DEI work for a while and worked in nonprofit. And she said, had an old manager say to me, like, what is with it? Like, we can only do what's in our purview. You know what I'm saying? We can only do what's in our purview. And like, that's how I try and handle it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I support those who need to be supported. I used to work, in higher education. I still have relationship with folks. I know folks that are doing doing work like that. I put out my podcast that I talk about these issues and try to put out practical steps of like, what you can do, learnings and teachings and stuff like that. I coach people. I go to organizations that are seriously willing to do the work. And then I rest, like there is a liberation and rest and enjoy that comes with it. There's like a spiritual component that exists when you're doing this kind of work, because you're dealing with like people, you're dealing with lives, you're dealing with humanity, personhood, right? And so like there is a spiritual component to that. And so like you can't continue to do this work and not recognize that like you got to breathe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you got to just like take a breath. Yeah.
Balancing all things, right? With exertion comes the need to recuperate.
Yeah. So I try and keep keep it in perspective. What can I actually do? What can I not do? Stay up on what I need to stay up on. But like, if I don't speak on a topic on my podcast, or if I don't share on Instagram about stuff, or if I am not talking about it all the time, like I like give myself permission to like let it go. Like, can I actually do something about this? Probably not. Like I can send letters. I can make calls to my local representatives, state representatives, whatever. But like I can only do what's in my purview. So like that's kind of how I try and put it in perspective. But sometimes honestly, it is too much. It's a lot, and then I have to log off social media because like it's a lot of stuff that just goes off. There's always something that's going to be happening in the world, in my community, all the time. So just like, again, keep it in perspective.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is to remember that I remind myself is that these companies, these algorithms are literally designed to make money off of us having a reaction, whether it be anger, joy, humor, whatever it is. Like it's a extremely advanced computer that has us so deep in our brains, and it's not to be trusted.
Yeah.
I heard a comment today about how the social media is like a funhouse mirror of reality. It's just like so twisted and not healthy.
Yeah.
But awesome, man. Well, the time is flowing by already, so we're gonna pivot over to the three things game.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, what month is your birthday in?
August.
John?
Yep.
Oh, same.
Yes.
Let's go.
Oh, okay. What day?
August 12th.
You're lying.
Is it your birthday too?
Yes.
Let's go! Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, unplanned, y'all.
Yeah.
Unplanned. That's wild. Yep, August 12th.
Let's go.
Yep.
It's the best day of the year.
It is.
It's statistically proven.
I know. Dope people are born that day.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll give you the stage. So you go first. So here's your question.
Okay.
And I'll have a different one.
All right. What are 3 lessons that have taken you the longest to learn? Oof. Okay. That is a really good question. 3 lessons that have taken me the longest to learn. All right. So number 1, I posted this on my podcast Instagram the other day. Is like, my favorite comedian, Tony Baker, he posted something on his Instagram and he said, where does your insecurities lie? Like, what is the origin of your insecurities? Mm-hmm. And like mine is like not, so like the rejection by my biological father, like literally just like rejected me and my mom and all that stuff. So like a lot of that has pushes my like performance, and like, I have to be the best. I have to do this. I'm like highly critical of myself, highly critical of the work that I do, stuff that I put out. And so it's just really like letting go of like, perfectionism is taking like the longest time to learn. Like it's so hard to just like let something exist and not think about what others are going to think about it, and like that's always in the back of my mind. Like, and I said that on Instagram, and I literally avoided Instagram for 2 days. I'm not joking. I like put that, I like vocalized that on Instagram. And I avoided Instagram because I was like, and I didn't realize like how anxious I was getting after I posted that. But that's one of them. So letting go of perfectionism and stop thinking about what other people think about me. Also just like just trying to have fun. Just be like loosey goosey. You know what I'm saying? I think my mom said this to me one time, like I overcalculate stuff all the time. And she's just like, you just stop being so calculated. Just do something spontaneous. Like being more spontaneous has been another hard lesson to learn. Cause like being spontaneous is hella fun. And then let's see, sitting still, just being quiet and sitting still has been a hard lesson to learn, but it's super beneficial. On Monday, I knew this week was going to be really busy. So I started my week out by like, made breakfast. I think I went on a walk, and then I pulled out my yoga mat, grabbed a pillow. I didn't have any music, nothing. I put on like essential oils, whatever in my house. Nice. And I laid down on my yoga mat and like just sat there and just turned on my like breathing app on my, my Apple Watch and just like breathed for 5 minutes. It was like the best thing I could do to start my week, but it was so hard because my mind kept going everywhere. But I just tried to focus my breathing. So sitting still. Yeah. Those are the hardest 3 things.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, bro. That was a great answer.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Here's my question. What are 3 things you have learned about confidence?
These are some good questions, yo.
This game is fire, man.
I love it.
The confidence, it's funny. It's fickle. That's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy, is it fickle.
It's so fickle. Yep.
Because I would imagine August 12th, boys here, I've never lacked confidence. Would you say the same thing? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Especially if I get on a stage, bro. I'm good to go.
Yeah. I love public speaking.
Yeah.
Said no one ever, but but then sometimes it's gone, right? And in those moments, it's like it almost feels like a betrayal. It's like, my friend, you've been here my whole life, and now you're gone. My confidence, like, what happened?
Truth, dog. Truth.
So I guess for me, the takeaway would be learning how to navigate those moments and what's missing, or how to deal. Number 2, I think it can be shared. It can be a gift to give other people.
That's good.
Just by giving somebody credit or giving them props or saying, is anything encouraging, goes a long way. It's infectious. I think it is kind of infectious, like a smile or like kindness. Mm-hmm. Number 3. Oh, it's the worst when there's too much of it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh God. Overconfident people just, ugh. And I could be that person.
I can too. It's hilarious, yo. Yeah. People do not like it. I'm just like,
it's like, dude, get out of here.
Yeah. And the thing is like, I love him but hate him. But the person that comes to mind immediately is like Conor McGregor. I'm like, how do you have this much confidence, bro?
Dude, he's ridiculous.
But I love. He's a great follow on Instagram, bro. Like I'm bro, I can't get enough of his stuff. I'm like, it's infectious, dude. I'm like, I really wish I could do that. Just like get my ass knocked out and rocked, and my ankle, my leg get broken in half, and still have the confidence you have. So yeah,
dude. He posted a photo of him like getting a shoe shine, or a video. He like has his walking stick, and he like tips the guy $100 for the shoe or whatever it is for the shoe shine.
Yeah, and I'm just like, how are you gonna be like a complete asshole and then also one of the nicest people? Like it's wild because he just does some just nice shit like all the time. Yeah. It's just wild. So, anyways, I love him, hate him. Both. It's love-hate relationship with Conor McGregor because I'm like, you're such a douche, but I love you so much. Yeah. So, anyways, he would beat my ass though. I'm not gonna try and front. He would whoop my ass. But
yeah. Those MMA guys are nuts.
Yeah.
Awesome, Jonathan. Well, where can the good people find your services professionally and also your podcast?
Absolutely. So, Thomas said at the top, like I'm a DE&I consultant, so I help organizations with their organizational development and team development efforts. So I go in and I'm an organizational psychologist by trade, help you out. And I also do one-to-one coaching or team coaching for my company as well, just helping with like leadership and career coaching. And my business is called CommonCulture Coaching and Consulting. You can find me at commonculturecc.com. Hopefully by the time this episode comes out, my website will be fully up and running. So you can reach out to me anytime there. You can find me on LinkedIn. Jonathan Lamel Dumas is my name on there. Lemele is Lemele. Dumas, Dumas. And then you can find me on my podcast. I do Real Talk with Dumas Podcast. You can find me anywhere your podcasts are live and up. Check me out on IG at RTWD Podcast. That is RTWD Podcast. That's where I'm at, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the Bro Nouveau podcast, Jonathan. It's been a real pleasure, man.
Bro, thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Woo! Yeah, buddy.
All right, G.
See you. Thanks.